You're lying! Humans have to be psychic! Krotz yelled, throwing her cards on the table. She was sitting across from me, a 7-foot prawn known as a quatken. With an upwards curve in their back, they use their lower limbs as legs to stand upright, their remaining limbs facing out in front of them. Another sharp curve at the neck forces them to be forward-facing. She was wearing their usual garb, reminiscent of togas from ancient history, dyed a deep purple to complement the blues of her carapace. We've been through this before. Humans are not and cannot be psychic. Besides, I don't need to be psychic to thrash you all of Fondar. As I said this, I revealed my hand, letting the cards land on the table and taking my winnings. I could hear the groans spread throughout the rest of the table as a smirk crossed my lips. On my left, Aelod started collecting everyone's cards up. Like all Lerol, Aelod was standing tall at 6 foot, a translucent octopus. Their hands are their bodies, containing most of their organs. Their arms, like earth octopi, are covered in suckers for grabbing and holding. Unlike octopi from Earth, Lerel have 10 of them, and tend to stick to using their arms in a more bipedal form when around others. Using 3 arms, as each leg, and then 2 arms acting as each of their more common-looking arms, Aelod liked to further this by wearing large rings down the length of his arms. They held them together to help sell the look. His legs were also covered with a pair of black 3/4-length shorts. "Another round?" he questioned. Everyone nodded or grunted in assent. Looking at my new hand, I realized this round would probably be a bad one. 2 black stars will do that. I was about to call when I noticed Francoise was looking very smug with himself. Can't be having that, I thought. Tharkaz was a Garzif. The Garzif are the spitting image of an old stuffed teddy bear come to life, standing up to 3 to 4 foot tall. Tharkaz in particular was older, middling height, his coat a mixture of greys and browns, mostly grey. He was dressed in a tight-fitting blue suit with a white shirt underneath. Before I could make my move, Krotz started. "So, as we have all obviously found out over these last 3 cycles, humans are psychic. However, they can't be the only species in the Union with some special ability." I winked at her in reply, deciding that although we had had this discussion a million times before, her opinion was not going to change easily. Anyway, I thought this could prove to be a very interesting topic. "Oh, and do pray tell, what special ability do the Quackens have that none of us will be aware of?" I said, my tone dripping with sarcasm. In response, she simply did her version of a smile, her tongue like flagellum, moving side to side. It took a few seconds, but then I smelt it. The smell of burnt toast. The same smell that had been driving me mad all rotation. "It was you!" I shouted indignantly. "Sorry, what's the issue here?" Tharkaz interjected. "Due to your many more cycles as a diplomat, you might already know. Us Quatkens, if the skill is trained, can reproduce certain smells at will." Tharkaz bobbed his head to the side, asking her to continue. "Well, one such combination matches a human sense of smell for burnt toast. Upon knowing this fact, I spent the past rotation spreading the scent wherever I knew Jim would soon be." It was at this point the rest of the table burst into a cacophony of laughter. "Ah, so that's why he's had to stick up his ass," Aelod remarked, between fits of hiccup sounds that were his laughter. "Shut it, Aelod. Randomly smelling burnt toast is one of the signs of stroke for humans. You and I both know that's not true. Just because there's no solid evidence doesn't mean it's false." Slamming their paws on the table with a big grin on their maw, Tharkaz interrupted. "Are we playing Fondar or not?" "Fine, I fold. You are too eager for those to be bad cards," I quipped. With an exasperated sigh, the rest of the table followed my lead, knowing that if I folded immediately, it meant Tharkaz had a winning hand. "Just because we're friends doesn't mean I won't skin you if you keep this up, boy," Tharkaz said with a glint in his eye, letting me know he wasn't serious. Yeah. Adding that with the payback I'm going to give Krotz for this rotation, I think we'll all probably end up even. Laughter echoed in response. With that said, we all returned back to the game at hand. After playing a few more rounds and seeing my pile of chips was growing nicely, I turned to my right and asked, "Now, we know Quatkens have a special ability. What special abilities do the Garzif have?" Instantly, Tharkaz replied, "When in a berserker rage, Garzif warriors are capable of punching through most of your metals with ease." I all but facepalmed. While Thakas was a smart man, his pride for his species meant he could often become tunnel-visioned when it came to their warriors. We all know you guys are the strongest, just like humans have the best stamina. Quackens have the best sense of smell, Laryl have the best eyesight with their extra wavelengths, and the Fees are the fastest. Before I could add any more, Krotz interjected. I think what he means is, does your species have any weirder or more unknown skills that would be unlikely to come up on our intelligence briefs? Taking a moment to think, Thakas started to softly hum to himself while we played. I was about to move on to Aeolad when he finally spoke. Precognition. We all stared at him like the old bear had gone mad. I don't believe you for a second. If you were psychic like Jim, you wouldn't be so bad at cards, Krotz exclaimed. While I grumbled about not being psychic, Thakas responded with a laugh, stating, It's not like that. When our adrenaline is really pumping, we get flashes of the immediate future. How do you think none of you have ever bested me at Gondlik? We always assumed you and Sierra had a deal that neither of you would tell us about, Krotz muttered. No, you know her. She would rather die than lose on purpose. That woman is the most competitive person I've ever met. She will be pissed when she gets back and finds out you have effectively been cheating all these cycles. You might have to deal with the entire hive if you don't break it to her gently, Krotz said, almost giddy. Seeing the look on his face at the thought of facing that hive 1 on 50, I couldn't help but cackle. After recovering my composure, I said, Nah, you should be fine, if I know her. Which I think I do, after how long we've been looking out for each other. She is likely going to take it as a challenge, and you'll be facing her daily until she beats you once, then never playing you again. We sat there, letting the silence hang in the air for a moment, thinking fondly over our memories with our friend. Aerlod was the first to speak. Wait a minute, why has this never come up in any of our research or briefings? Our species have been allied for over 700 years. Are you really telling me that, in all that time, your species has been hiding this fact from its closest ally? Thakas looked at him, before shrugging his shoulders and sighing. We never hid it. I'm sure some of your higher-ups are aware of it. Honestly, most of our species don't think it even exists. Medically, it is classed as an unknown, as any tests to try to measure or repeat it have failed. The current leading theory is that due to the levels of adrenaline pumping in our system, our brain struggles to keep up, so what is seen as the future is really a flash of the present while our consciousness tries to catch up. Aerlod had that look on his face again, the look that said he wasn't going to let this go. Lad, leave it until tomorrow. Then you can do all the research your heart's desire. You still need to hear what the Laryl can do. I knew that wouldn't stop him, but it would probably derail his thoughts enough to allow us to finish the game. Maybe even until he fell asleep, if he had kept drinking at his current rate. His bulbous head turned a soft shade of green, indicating heavy thinking. Shaking his head slowly, he looked to each of us in turn. There are no secret abilities my people hold. All information we have is shared openly as the Accord required. However, after my time with you guys, I also know most of you don't read even half of the Laryl documents we provide. We would be more willing to read it if over half of it wasn't unnecessary detail, with most of that being redacted by the Council, leaving snippets of unintelligible information, I retorted. I am going to assume that none of you bothered reading about our nervous system then? I read it, we all did. You can regrow your severed limbs, although not without major pain and a change in your personality due to brain damage, Krotz half-heartedly replied, more focused on trying to bluff me out of my winnings. Apparently not all of it. Otherwise you would know what I was getting at. Yes, we can regrow limbs. However, there is a minuscule chance, if severed in the right place and treated quickly, the lost limb can grow into a separate person, holding whatever memories were stored in the limb at the time of dismemberment. What? We all spluttered at once. Apparently Aelod was right. None of us had read that information. Yeah, both times that has been documented. The original Laryl took their limb in, treated them as their offspring, allowing the limb to grow and live a relatively normal life. As we contemplated all the new information learned tonight, the game came to a close. Each of us counting our chips to split the money. I looked over each pile. Aelod, as usual, was down 20. It was obvious to all of us that he didn't care for the gambling but enjoyed the company. Thakas was a little worse aware tonight, down 80 compared to his usual 70. Krotz, though, was looking quite unhappy, realizing she was down 120. The past few rotations she was getting better, only losing 50. This loss would sting. I decided I would buy her a treat next I saw her. Ayla went to rise, but mid-movement, sat back down. I have to ask, if you're not psychic, which you've denied since we first played, then how are you so good at cards? Specifically Fondar. I sighed. I knew this day was coming. I was hoping it would be a couple more rotations so I would have enough to buy it outright. But it couldn't be helped, and this meant it would be ready for when Ciara returned. The answer is twofold. First, as you know, I spent a lot of my childhood playing with cards, learning tricks and the like. Never could get the hang of card counting, though. What's card counting? Alod urged. I could tell he was going to be bouncing between the Garzif, precognition, and card counting for the next few rotations. I won't spoil it for you, but suffice to say, it is meant to be a way to even the odds in many card games across the Union. What's the second part? Krotz asked, eyeing me suspiciously. It is what I use to actually beat you all. Humans are very good at reading and understanding non-verbal cues. I would say we are the best in the Union. Have none of you ever wondered why at least one human can be found on almost every ship? I asked, now curious. Well, it's certainly not for your personality. That does raise a good point, though. Humans are known throughout the Union for being the most emotionally supportive and steadfast in protecting their pack. I never realized it was because they acted as the main support structure for their group, Ayla surmised. Yep. It's also why you will quite often find us in mediation roles or in... Quit stalling. How have you been winning so much? Krotz always shouted, the anger on her face exploding. Right. You all have tells, some more obvious than others. I simply read those tells and let the chips fall where they may. It was Thakas that spoke up next. Shinshu, there's no way. You must be cheating somehow. Alright, to prove it, I'll tell you the tells. Might make future games fairer. I'm getting tired of always beating you lot anyway. You're not, you love winning, Krons interjected, her antenna high in annoyance. True, I replied with a grin. Let's play one more round, and if I lose, you can all keep my winnings. As I dealt the cards, I carefully watched each player. Let's start with the easiest to read, Krotz. You currently have a mediocre hand, probably something like a black star and a green shield. I can tell because your flagellum is slowly moving up and down in thought. Immediately, she rushes to cover her mouth. No, it's not. Yes, it was. Now you're mad, and as such your antennae are raised, admittedly slightly more than when it's a bad hand, but the action is the same. That really raised her antenna. Is that how you always know when I'm angry or upset? She exclaimed, her antenna moving back down and to the side in shock. Pretty much. There are some other minor things, but that is the main part, I shrugged. When you have a good hand like Alod, your rostrum powers very slightly. I turned to face Thakas, leaning back before Kroska slapped me with her claw. I felt the air rush past as it just missed my nose. Thakas, you're slightly more difficult to read, but not by much. When you have a bad hand, as you do now, your posture worsens, and you slump your shoulders slightly. It's only a touch, but it's there. I watched as he then straightened out his posture, asking, What are my other tells? Well, when it's a good hand, your brow tends to rise slightly, and if you have a very good hand, your eyes also widen to the size of saucers. If you have a mediocre hand, it's normally a mixture of rising your brow, with a even smaller slump in your posture. Occasionally, if you are going for a big bluff, your thumb will slide back and fall from your cards. As I said each part, I saw him mimic the movements, trying to get a feel for how much he moved. Noted. Watch out for next time, it's not going to be as easy for you. Thakas had a massive grin on his muzzle. I look forward to it. I can finally stop going easy on you, I countered with a grin to match. Seeing as we know Krotz and Thakas don't have good cards and so are out, what do you want to do, Alod? Continue playing or fold and do more research? I asked, turning to watch him carefully. I fold. If card counting works, then I can make my money back next time. His head shimmered as a number of thoughts crossed his mind. Go on then, what are my tells? Very well. When it's a bad hand, your eyes squint slightly. A good hand means your hearing ball thingy. Staticist, he interrupted. Right, staticist, sorry. It enlarges by a gib. With a mediocre hand, I either haven't found your tell, or you don't have one, and that is in fact the tell itself. I then slowly revealed my hand. On the table lay 2 red birds. The worst starting hand possible. A groan crossed the table as I took my winnings back. You'll all be pleased to know these winnings are going to be a surprise, I chimed. What surprise? Krotz immediately focused, her attention now drawn to the winnings like they held the key to the universe. Well, it wouldn't be a surprise if I told you now, would it? At this, Krotz slumped back and muttered, All right then, keep your secrets. With the cars now packed away and the time well and truly spent, we all made our way to leave. Thakkas offered me a ride home, as he knew I normally walked in the mornings. Thanks, but no thanks. I have an extra stop to make, and the walk will do me good. With my goodbyes said, I left the warmth of the building, took a deep breath of Arnus winter air, feeling the cold wake me up with a shiver, and set off to the store. It was time to buy them that surprise.